If you came here wondering whether the Clown Motel is actually as terrifying as people say, or if anything really happens when the sun goes down, trust me, you're about to find out exactly what we experienced, because by the end of this night, we weren't so sure we were alone anymore. The Clown Motel is not like anything you've ever seen before. Even from a distance, it feels off. There's something about it that immediately puts you on edge, like your instincts are quietly warning you before your brain can catch up. And as we pulled up, that uneasy feeling only got stronger. I was already nervous and we hadn't even stepped out of the car yet. Then it hit us. Not just the motel itself, but what sits right beside it. A cemetery. Not just any cemetery, but one that's over 100 years old. And in that moment, standing there with the fading sunlight stretching shadows across the desert of Tonopah, it stopped feeling like a quirky roadside attraction and started feeling like a place we probably shouldn't be. "What was that?" one of us said almost immediately, turning toward the direction of the graves. We hadn't even begun yet. The Clown Motel in Tonopah is widely known as one of the scariest motels in America. And once you understand its history, it's not hard to see why. The story begins with a man named Clarence David, a local resident who died in a mine fire back in 1942. He was buried in the cemetery right next door where we're now standing. But here's where it gets strange. Clarence loved clowns. Not casually, he had a full collection. Around 150 clown dolls and pieces of memorabilia. After he passed, his children built the motel right beside his grave and filled it with his collection. That was just the beginning. Over time, more and more clowns were added. Donations came in from all over. And now, decades later, the motel isn't just a place to stay, it's a place people come specifically because of the strange energy, the stories, and the things that supposedly happen here. We finally stepped out of the car, motel on one side, cemetery on the other. "How do you feel now that we're actually here?" I asked. There was a pause. "I'm excited," came the reply. "But also, yeah, I'm definitely nervous. About what we might run into." That pretty much summed it up. The motel itself almost looked harmless at first glance, bright, a little weird, almost silly. But the cemetery behind it, that's what really got to us. Rows of old, weathered headstones stretching into the darkness, and we only had about 20 minutes of daylight left. So we decided to head inside. The second you walk in, you're surrounded. Clowns everywhere. Not just a few here and there, hundreds. Shelves packed with them, some tiny, some life-sized. All staring, all different. And somehow, every single one feels like it's watching you. And the longer you stand there, the more it feels like the room is getting smaller. Like the walls are slowly closing in. And maybe that's just your imagination, but in a place like this, it's hard to tell the difference. We were introduced to the owner, who greeted us warmly. He explained that the motel had been around for over 70 years, and that what we were seeing now was only a fraction of what existed. There are about 2,000 clowns on display, he told us, but we have thousands more in storage. Thousands. And somehow, that didn't make the place feel bigger. It made it feel crowded. Like even the ones you couldn't see were somehow still part of the atmosphere. And every single one of them was donated. He made that very clear. They don't buy any of them, people bring them here. And with those donations sometimes come stories and attachments. And that's when the idea really started to settle in. What if it's not just the building that feels strange? What if it's everything? Inside it? Then he brought up one in particular, Charlie. We had heard about Charlie before arriving, but seeing him in person was something else. He looked worn, damaged, his hair uneven, parts of him missing. People take him to their rooms, the owner explained, And sometimes pieces go missing, fingers, parts of his head, little bits disappearing over time. But what made it stranger was where he came from. He wasn't bought. He wasn't gifted in any normal way. Someone had simply left him there. No note, no explanation. And no one has ever come back to claim him. Almost like they didn't want him back. We asked if anything had ever happened involving Charlie. The owner hesitated slightly, then described nights where he'd feel like someone was there, like someone telling him to wake up and check the rooms. But when he looked, no one was there, not in the hallway, not outside, nowhere. He didn't say it was Charlie, but he didn't rule it out either. After thanking him, we stepped back outside, and just like that, the sun was gone. Darkness had taken over completely, and with it, that feeling came back. Stronger this time. The kind that makes you glance over your shoulder without even realizing it. Like your body is reacting before your mind even understands why. The lights around the Clown Motel flickered softly against the night. Not enough to fully light the area. Just enough to create shadows, long ones. The kind that stretch further than they should. The kind that make it harder to tell where something ends and where something else begins. For a moment, we just stood there, not talking, not moving, just listening. Because once the night settled in, the silence felt different. During the day, it was just quiet. Now, it felt like something was holding that silence in place. It was time to explore the rooms, but now it didn't feel like a choice. It felt like the next step. The first one we entered was room 108, often referred to as the Pennywise room. Even before turning the lights on, it felt wrong. Not loud. Not obvious. Just off. The air felt heavier. Quieter. Too quiet. The walls were covered in clown imagery, including a massive mural that immediately drew your eyes, whether you wanted to look or not. And the strange part? Once you looked at it, it felt hard to look away. When the lights came on, it was overwhelming. Clowns everywhere. Not just on the walls. On the shelves, on the furniture, even in the corners, where the light didn't fully reach. And those corners? They felt deeper than they should have. Like the darkness in them wasn't just from lack of light. I don't like this, one of us said immediately. And honestly, neither did I. There was something about this room that didn't feel like decoration anymore. It felt intentional. Like everything had been placed exactly where it needed to be. Not randomly, not casually, but with purpose. And the longer you stood there, the more it felt like you were part of that setup. This room was rumored to be home to something people called a trickster, a presence known for moving objects, hiding belongings, even making things disappear entirely. Guests had reported hearing knocks at the door with no one there, voices with no source, and in some cases, seeing a tall figure standing at the foot of the bed, 7 feet tall. Not moving. Not speaking, just standing there, watching. We decided to test it. Not because we felt brave, but because standing there doing nothing somehow felt worse. We placed a backpack on a table, set up a camera, adjusted the angle, checked it twice. Then we stepped back and waited. At first, nothing. Just the sound of the AC humming in the background, a constant noise. Almost comforting at first. But after a while, it started to feel too loud. Like it was covering something else. Minutes passed. Slowly. Longer than they should have. It started to feel like nothing was going to happen. But at the same time, no one felt comfortable enough to relax. Are you here? We asked into the room. Silence. But it wasn't. Empty. It felt like the kind of silence that listens back. Like something was aware, but choosing not to respond. We stayed there longer than we planned. not because anything happened, but because leaving felt just as strange as staying. Eventually, we moved on. Room 217, known as the Chucky room. This one felt different immediately, not louder, not colder, not scarier in an obvious way, just wrong. The kind of wrong you can't explain. The kind that sits quietly in the background. The walls were lined with dolls, all variations of the same unsettling figure, different sizes, different expressions, but all similar enough to feel repetitive. And then there was Charlie, sitting there among them. But he didn't blend in. Something about him stood out, not just visually, but differently, like your attention kept going back to him, even when you tried to look somewhere else, but something looked off. There were stains, marks, details that didn't look new, didn't look placed. They looked like they had always been there, like they didn't belong to the room, but had somehow become part of it. I thought he was supposed to be friendly, someone said quietly. No one laughed. Because, in that moment, nothing about him felt friendly. We set our equipment down again, trying to stay calm, trying to keep it controlled. Lights off this time. The room dropped into darkness. Not complete darkness, but enough that shapes started to blur together. Edges disappeared. Corners became deeper. Objects lost their clarity. Charlie, if you're here, can you give us a sign? Nothing at first. Then, a sound clear, like footsteps outside. We froze. Another noise. Closer this time. Slow, measured, like someone walking right up to the door. And then, it sounded like the handle moved, not aggressively, not forced. Just enough to notice, just enough to feel real. We looked at each other. No one spoke. Slowly, we got up, walked to the door, paused, then opened it. No one. The hallway was empty. Completely still. No footsteps, no voices, no movement. Just silence. But now, it felt different, heavier. We stood there for a moment, looking down the hallway, waiting for something, anything. Nothing came. We closed the door, and for a second, it felt like we had interrupted something, like whatever had been there was no longer where we expected it to be. We tried to explain it. Maybe someone walked by, maybe another guest, maybe the building settling, maybe, but deep down, it didn't feel random. It felt timed, like something had been there, and then chose to leave. After that, we didn't stay much longer, because at some point, you stop trying to prove something is there, and start wondering if it's better not to. So we decided to head somewhere even more unsettling, the cemetery, at night. It was a completely different place. The silence out there wasn't peaceful. It was heavy, almost oppressive, like the air itself had weight. Every step felt louder than it should. Every sound felt closer than it was. Even small movements felt like they carried further. We started using a spirit box, calling out, asking questions. At first, just static, noise without meaning. Then, a word. 7. We stopped, looked at each other. No one spoke. A few seconds later, 7 again. Then another number. 10. We didn't say anything at first. We didn't need to. 17. 17 miners had died in that fire. We asked if we were speaking to them. The static continued. But something shifted. Not a sound. Not movement. Just a feeling. Like the space around us had become aware of us. Like something had acknowledged we were there. We tried asking for names. At one point, we thought we heard something. David. Not clear. Not definite. But enough. Enough to make the moment feel real. We eventually moved deeper into the cemetery. trying to find Clarence's grave. And then, a loud metallic sound, sharp, sudden, close. We both jumped. What was that? We turned, scanning the darkness. Nothing. No movement, no footsteps. Just the faint wind brushing through the desert. But whatever it was, it didn't sound natural. We searched, carefully, slowly, looking for anything. A loose gate, a piece of metal, something hanging. Anything that could explain it. Nothing. Eventually, we stumbled across a grave, Clarence, and standing there, everything felt quieter. Not safe, just quieter. Like whatever was out there wasn't focused on us anymore. We took a moment, thanked him for the motel, for the experience, for whatever had or hadn't happened, and standing there in the silence, surrounded by history, stories, and things we couldn't fully explain, it was hard to shake the feeling that this place was more than just a tourist attraction. We didn't see anything clearly, nothing we could prove, nothing we could show and say, this is it. But that doesn't mean nothing happened. Because sometimes it's not about what you see. It's about what stays with you after. The feeling you can't explain. The moment that replays in your mind. The silence that feels too aware. And the Clown Motel along with that cemetery and the desert surrounding it has a way of leaving something behind. Not something you can touch. Not something you can prove. Just a feeling that maybe you weren't alone and maybe you never really were.